This next speaker, I've gotten to know over the last couple of years, and I'm sure when General McConville first met me and said, hey, if you're ever in the Pentagon, he didn't realize I was going to call him every time I got to the Pentagon. But he's always made time for me, and I appreciate that. So we're excited to talk to him about his role in the last couple of years. So General James C. McConville assumed duties as the 40th Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army August 9th, 2019, after most recently serving as the 36th Vice Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army. He is a native of Quincy, Massachusetts, and a graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point, New York. He holds a Master's of Science in Aerospace Engineering from Georgia Institute of Technology and was a National Security Fellow at Harvard University in 2012. McConville's command assignments include Commanding General of the 101st Airborne Division, Air Assault, where he also served as the Commanding General of the Combined Task Force 101, Operation Enduring Freedom, Deputy Commanding General Support of the 101st Airborne Division, where he also served as the Deputy Commanding General, and the Commander of 4th Brigade, 1st Cav Division, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Commander of the 2nd Squadron, 17th Cavalry Regiment, 101st, and Commander of C Troop, 2nd Squadron, 9th Cavalry Regiment, 7th Infantry Division. His key staff assignments include U.S. Army Deputy Chief of Staff, G1, Chief Legislative Liaison, Executive Officer to the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army, G3 for 101st Airborne Division, J5 Strategic Planner for U.S. Special Operations Command, S3 for the 25th Combat Aviation Brigade, S3 for 5th Squadron 9th Cav, and S3 for Flight Concepts. McConville is a senior Army aviator qualified in the AH-64 Delta Longbow Apache, OH-58 Kiowa Warrior, AH-6, AH-1 Cobra, and other aircraft. Basically a badass. His awards and decorations include 2 Distinguished Service Medals, 3 Legions of Merit, 3 Bronze Stars, 2 Defense Meritorious Service Medals, 3 Meritorious Service Medals, 2 Air Medals, the Joint Service Commendation Medal, 2 Army Commendation Medals, 4 Army Achievement Medals. Anyway, you can look at his uniform. He's got a lot of medals.
Thank you for that kind introduction.
All right.
All right.
So our mics are hot. You know, normally they don't put me in these tall chairs because I'm so short. All right, sir. So appreciate you taking the time. And I think, you know, the Army is going through probably the biggest innovation transformation that's ever happened. You've been at the lead of that. And, you know, as part of that, a lot of times when we talk about people, and you've centered your career on the focus of people and managing their careers to meet maximum potential. Is it all instincts, or is there something you do to quantify talent? How do you think about talent when you're in charge of?
You know, the thing about instincts is what I say is, you know, we hear a lot as you're coming up through the ranks, trust your instincts. What I say is only if you have them. and what I mean by that is, you know, in sub jobs, and when I talk to you about, you know, talent management, I'm really talking from the military perspective. And, you know, what I've learned over the last 42 years or 41 years in the Army is there's a couple of attributes that I think are really important as I, you know, talk to, you know, business leaders, and the same things hold true. And, you know, the first thing is competence, you know, and, you know, it seems pretty straightforward, but you know, that's kind of the IQ side. You got to, you know, the Patriots, and I'm a Boston fan anyway, the Patriots always say do your job, but before you can do your job, you got to know what it is. So we look for competence, we look for commitment. We want people that, you know, are committed to the organization, and that's really important. But the things that I find with senior leaders that really make a difference is character. And character matters. And, you know, as you move up, people are looking at you, and they expect you to do the right thing the right way. And if you want to lead an organization, you have to be beyond reproach when it comes to character. And the last thing we're seeing is we want leaders that actually care. And, you know, it is about people. And, you know, in the Army, I say it's people first, and a lot of people go, I thought it was mission first. No, to me, it's people first, because people are really what the Army is all about. and we want leaders to care. And the other thing I'd add is, I've seen different types of leaders, and I kind of have put them into three categories. And the first category is the pundits. Those are the people that kind of sit in the stands and they watch what's going on, and they're always kind of criticized, and they write pithy op-eds and they do all this stuff, but they really don't help you lead change and get things done. Then you have what I call the train conductors. Those are the people, the good, solid people. They'll keep the trains on time, but if you are looking for innovators, you're looking for people that are going to lead and make change, they're not the right ones. In fact, they'll push back on it because they like the train tracks, they like the trains, and they want to keep them on time. And the third ones are, I call them the GSD people. And some people use different, so it's get stuff done. You can use a different letter if you want.
I think this word,
this is
can
a
use
PG
whatever letter
crowd.
you want, sir.
But they get things done. They're innovators. They want to lead change, and you give them a problem, and they get it done. And the best ones not only get stuff done, they get it done while they're taking care of their people.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think your point about empathetic leaders, I heard you mention that last time we sat together in the Pentagon, and I think that's really a different attitude than maybe people have thought about the way we develop our leaders in the past. You're known as one of the key leaders driving innovation to support the organization, training and equipping the Army for, this great power competition. What can you share with the group about how you think about that?
Yeah, I think leaders have to have a vision, and they have to, think about where they're going, and really you have to think about the organization, because there's a lot of junior leaders that are going to help you do the day-to-day type operations. And you have to kind of look out there, you have to bring in some very smart folks, and you have to put the organization on a path to the future. And what I argue in the United States Army is every 40 years, we have to transform the Army. We did it in 1940 when General Marshall had my job, and one of the things he talked about was, when I had the time, I didn't have the money. And then World War II came along, and they said, when I had the money, I didn't have the time, And I take a look at, and some of the, the folks that are here around my age group, the next time we transformed the Army was coming out of Vietnam. And we took a look at the Arab-Israeli War in 1973. And out of that, the senior leaders that were sitting in my position, what they came up with was a doctrine we called air-land battle. And some of you that have been in the Army probably remember air-land battle. We came up with new organizations. If any of you served in the Rangers, that was a new organization that came out of Desert One, the 160th, the Aviation Unit, our Special Mission Units. All that stuff came out of the late 70s, early 80s. We stood up these places called the National Training Center. If you've ever been to Fort Irwin, or and haven't been on, I think I was on the first rotation. We put a light infantry division in at Fort Irwin. And there's a little thing between infantry and armor, and so the armor folks wanted to show light infantry what it was like to sit in the Valley of Death, so they ran the regiment over us about 6 times in a row. And what the Army decided to do is, we need a place for the infantry, so we created the Joint Readiness Training Center. It was at Chaffee, went to Polk, and so we got the training. But the other thing we did, which a lot of you that are in industry running around, is we came up with what we call the Big Five. That was the Abrams tank, it was the Bradley fighting vehicle, it was the Apache helicopter, it was the Black Hawk, and it was the Patriot. And the other thing we did was we went from conscription to the all-volunteer force. And that's what we kind of brought in at that time. And that was the 1980s, and quite frankly, over the last 40 years, we have incrementally improved that force. Well, I argue we're at a point right now, we're coming out of Afghanistan. Many of you have served maybe in Afghanistan, Iraq. We did irregular warfare, we did counterinsurgency, we did counterterrorism, and as we looked at the future, we took a look at places like China, places like Russia, Iran and North Korea had not gone away, and we made the determination that we're going to have to be able to fight and win in this environment, and we must transform the Army right now. And so we put the Army on a path to do that. And we've come out with new doctrine, and it deals with multi-domain operations. We've come out with new organizations, and we are coming out with new capabilities that are aligned along 6 modernization priorities. So long-range precision fires, we're going to replace the Bradley with the next generation combat vehicle. We're developing new aircraft on the future vertical lift. The secret to the future is data. You know, I'm not a data scientist, but I'm learning to be one, because if you want to be lethal on the battlefield, you got to be able to take data from multiple sensors, move it very, very quickly, and get it to the right shooters, and make that happen. And we're doing a lot of things in the talent management area. You know, we're competing with all of you for talent. And the difference is we don't have the payroll that you have, but we're in a war for talent. And we want to be the place where young men and women want to come and have an opportunity to do pretty much anything they want to do. In fact, we want them to be all they can be, you know, and we're going to bring in so watch that, you know. And so that's what's going on with the Army. We've stood up a new Futures Command, and some of you have been down there. And it's amazing because the Army is kind of always thought as slow and bureaucratic, and we are getting ready to field 24 signature modernization systems next year. And a lot of you, some of you are involved in those type systems, which is pretty amazing. And we're pretty pleased with where we're going. But the one thing that I've found, you know, and I hate to admit it, but by next year when I retire, I've spent 9 years straight in the Pentagon. You know, those are dog years. You know, it's where I don't. It can, but the thing is, you know, some of us have been very consistent and persistent on priorities, and especially when you're in a large organization or you're in a bureaucracy, if you don't stick with it, there's a whole bunch of people that drive trucks full of salt and sand, and they pull up their dump trucks and they try to slow things down. And if you don't keep, you know, moving and pushing, you won't get to where you need to be. And so that's what, to me, you know, transformation is all about.
Now that you're, you know, 4 years in, or, you know, this current run, is there anything you do different? How do you think about, you know, I've been fortunate enough, my classmate Sean, you know, we're part of watching you build AFC when Murray was, you know, the first person in command. Now that you're 4 years in, you know, any successes, failures that you've kind of reflected on?
Well, I mean, there's always failures. Things don't, you know, we shot a couple of missiles that didn't quite go the way we wanted, you know, but...
Think about if the Army had put one of their priorities as like developing the iPhone. We would have been the most successful, right?
Yeah, well, we got IVAS. We're going to replace,
right.
You know, I talk about the phones, you know, and, you know, I think for the Army, we're doing pretty, we could always do better. But, you know, when I take a look at, you know, outcome focuses, and, you know, it just takes time in a large bureaucracy to get things done. You know, one of the things we're doing too, which I think we could have done better, is we're in placing an integrated personnel and pay system. And, you know, for those who've served in the Army, you know, the big thing is, at least for me, is the young men and women today don't want to be treated like they're interchangeable parts in an industrial age system. They you know, and for a lot of the older leaders, this is hard for them to take, you know, because, you know, I look at the young people today, and I got 3 millennial kids that serve in the Army, and they're way better than I ever was or could be, and they're doing incredible things. But my oldest, who's pretty much done everything and has done some pretty interesting, he goes, Dad, you need to understand us, you know. If you manage our talents, you'll do fine with us, but we're not going to go, you tell us, you know, like old people like us, you know, the military said go stand in the corner, you stood in the corner. They look at it like, hey, you better be taking advantage of my talents, or I'm going to go somewhere that they do that, and you all deal with that. And so we got to make sure that we have purposeful, you know, duties for these young men and women. And what I find, and because I have this discussion, they are way better than we ever were. They're more physically fit when they want to be. They're smarter. They're more innovative, and they are more digital savvy. And what we have to do, which goes against, you know, kind of, you know, the idea is that we have to be able to manage their talents. And the other thing we're finding is, you know, we have, you know, many of you that have served, we manage people in the Army by 2 variables. You're a captain of infantry, you're a sergeant of engineers, and we think everyone's the same. No, they're not. You know, many of you have knowledge, skills, and behavior that we have to be able to, capture and work it. I'll give you one of my best, I got a ton of examples, but I don't want to spend the whole time, but I'll give you one example. The Army stood up a software factory down at Austin, and which is really kind of pretty cutting edge for us. And we did it because we needed soldiers who could code on the edge of the battlefield, because as we get into artificial intelligence and targeting, we're going to be in this battle where people are going to, we have to change algorithms on the fly as our adversaries change the way things look like, so we can determine what's a tank and not a bus and those type things. So we said we're going to start up a software factory. We want soldiers who can do that. And we put out a call, and we're not as sophisticated the way we should because we don't have the systems in place, but we just put out an email or we put out a banner saying, who wants to be work in the software factory? And we had a medic come in. This medic is an E4, a specialist of medics. We would normally have that person in an aid station doing medicine. That medic codes at the PhD level, has no formal training, and is just a high-speed coder. And when I talk to we have majors, lieutenant colonels down there who do have PhDs, in coding, and they go, this kid just happens to pick it up on his own, but we would never do that because our talent management systems don't get it. So all those things are extremely important in the future.
Well, and you've said the soldier's the Army's most important weapon. So how do you think about, using innovation to attract recruits today and in the future? And I know you've said it's getting harder, and sometimes even the ones that want to come in, they're not fit enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret right now. It's recruiting is really challenging, and what I find, there's certainly some people says, is the politics going on. I don't get into any of those type things, but here's what I do know: the young men and women today, it used to be, that a certain percentage were qualified. Only 23% of American youth are qualified to come in the Army, 23%. And only about 8 or 9% are propensed. The other interesting factoid is 83%, think about this, 83% of the kids that come in the military come from a military family. So we are becoming a military family business, which I do not think is good. I was a G1, so I signed all my kids up, so all 3 of my kids are in. I had to make mission, so they're gone, so I need some help. But when you think about it, military kids understand what the military is all about. The other interesting factoid is 44% of the kids that come from high schools that have a JROTC program. And so they've been exposed. And so there's 2 things we've found. One is we weren't doing a good job of exposing American youth to the military, and this was exacerbated by COVID when kids weren't even going to school. So we have done a major change where we have divisions, and some of you are in divisions, in direct support of recruiting brigades. So the 101st Airborne Division has a recruiting brigade that they're supporting, and they're bringing kids on our gated communities, and they're bringing the kids on and let them, run around and do, and get a feel of what the Army is all about. The other thing that's interesting is it used to be 2/3 of the kids that came into a recruiting station could pass the ASVAB. And for those that don't know what ASVAB is, it's basically an SAT for the Army or for the military. And so what we have done is, at least as the chief, I am adamant about not lowering standards. And, to me, quality is more important than quantity, so we've kind of taken, a dip in where we're at, and we're just calling what it is. But what we're going to do is we've put together a program, and it's called the Future Soldier Prep Course. Some of you, West Point had a prep school. Well, we got a prep course for the Army, and we're bringing in young men and women who qualify at the lowest level, which we call Cat 4 as far as their scores. Some are 2 to 6% over body fat. And we're bringing them into this program, and it's a 90-day program where they have an opportunity to, get in shape and to pass the tests. And we brought 1,000 in already, and about 75% have really improved. We have seen some incredible improvement. And I went down there. I took the, it's always risky. You got to take risks when you do things, but we stood up this thing very quickly because, quite frankly, we're in a crisis. You have a crisis, you got to take action, you got to get things done. You can't, people want to study stuff. I go, we're not studying anything. We're going to put this program in place, get the right leadership in place, and we'll bring this thing together. So I wanted to get it out. So I brought down Lita Ballador. AP, if you deal with the media, you want to get something in the news, get it with AP. It'll go out across a whole bunch of news. I brought NBC, and I brought Defense all down there. I was risking doing that because I had no idea what people were going to tell me, So you kind of, and that's why they wanted to come. They're going to see it the same time I saw it, and it was really impressive. The young men, and women that talked to these reporters, going, I've been trying to get in the Army for 6 years, and I haven't been able to pass the ASVAB. And then other people that weren't in shape were getting in shape, and so I think there's a lot of opportunity here to give young men and women a chance. And here's some, that, we took a look. We've had valedictorians that can't pass the ASVAB. We've had people with master's degrees that can't pass the ASVAB. We did a pilot at a major university that I won't say the name because we had a ROTC commanding general who said, we ought to have all the cadets take the ASVAB, because the troops take it. I go, well, be careful on that one. You may not like the results, So I go, when someone has an idea, and this gets into how do you get after it, I go, pilot it. The way you do things quick, okay, take it to this university, and it's a university that begins with a V that's in Nashville, but I won't say the name. But anyway, so it's a fairly significant university, and 50% of the kids pass the ASVAB, so we don't offer it for ROTC. But anyways, so there's some things we have to do, but as far as, talent management, we're going after kids in a way that we never did before. They're getting bonuses. We're giving them, choice of first duty station. And, we have to compete. And we have to compete for them to stay in the Army. And, a lot of our talent management programs that are developed to go after the best. Some of you, I had my paperwork in 5 years as a captain. I was getting out, and that's a long story, but, somehow
it worked out, sir.
Well, yeah, it depends how you look at it. But anyways, not too
41
bad.
years, 4 stars,
yeah,
chief.
Yeah. So, but the interesting thing is, I remember when I was a G1, someone came up to me and goes, hey, we got a problem. 50% of the captains are getting out. I said, I don't know if that's a problem or not, because 50% of the captains have to get out. I used my master's degree from aerospace engineering. I said we have 3,600 captains in a year group, and we can only have 1,800 majors, right? So guess what? 50% need to get out. But here's the thing. Here's the nuance of that. Who's getting out? What I said is, and what we need to do is, I want to compete for the top, stay with me, the top 80% of the top 50%. And that's what we need. We need the best folks to stay in the Army, and we can't treat them all the same, so we have to go after their talents and offer them, incentives to do that. We're putting out a program, I think it went out yesterday. Any recruiters here? Anyone as officers do recruiting? No one did, right? No one probably wanted. You did? Okay.
That's why we have a recruiting issue.
Okay, over here. But here's the deal. So think about this. How do we get people? We can say recruiting is important, which it is. Recruiting soldiers, and you're a captain, you're sitting there, you come out of the Ranger Battalion, you come out of this thing, and so why would you want to go to recruiting? Well, what we're doing now is, hey, if they said to me, McConville, you're going to go recruit in Boston, you're going to go recruit for 2 years, and then you're going to Harvard for 2 years, and that's going to be your 4-year, you may want to do that. So we're coming out with a program, we're actually doing that. So we're going to get, 20 captains, and we're going to offer them, the Chief of Staff of the Army's Recruiter Scholar Program. We just put it together, and we're going to go out there, and I bet you we're going to get some good captains. They're going to be committed, and they're going to want to go do that, and that's how we're trying to get after talent. So we're competing with each and every one of you for talent, okay? So and we're going to win, okay? Because winning does matter, if I haven't said that,
So, you've met with over 75 chiefs of staff from allied and partner nations. How does the DoD rely on our allies and partners? And, that's a broad question, but, I know there's also a lot related to innovation. So however you want to answer.
Yeah, I think that's it's a really important question. Not going to give you a homework assignment, but someone gave it to me. But there's a book out there, The End of the World is Just Beginning. Anyone read it? So some of you have. But it's an interesting, because it kind of puts the whole strategic, kind of ecosystem into perspective. And a lot of you are in business, so you might want to read that because it's probably more helpful for those that are taking a look at the business. But here's the deal. Allies and partners really matter. And if you take a look at what's happening in Ukraine right now, the world coming together, regional conflicts have global implications. Those are all in the business. We have a multi-step supply chain around the world. Most systems, a lot of the primes don't even know who makes all their stuff. You get a little O-ring. You might have saw can take down the whole Chinook fleet. Because the O-rings aren't quite the right, whatever. So that is something that is really important. And all of a sudden, when you look at Ukraine and Russia, especially in a certain area, that's a breadbasket that's feeding the rest of the world. So when there's a regional conflict, I'm meeting with the Bangladesh Chief of Staff of the Army on something else in Asia, and he's talking about, we think we're going to starve. We got to get this food thing going. Or all of a sudden, energy is not moving the way it needs to move. And there's some countries that have energy but have no food. There's some countries that have food but no energy. Some can do some things. Everyone has optimized the supply chain, and they benefited from that because they're all doing it. The problem is it's fragile. And so why do we work with allies and partners? Because most of our competitors, if you will, in the National Defense Strategy, we call China a pacing challenger, if you will. It's not a threat; it's a challenge. It matters. They care what other people think because they have to do business with other people, and so the strength that we have is really a whole of government effort. We call it integrated deterrence. So it's not just military, it's also diplomacy, it's information operations, it's economic, really matters. And for all of us, peace and stability in the world is in all of our interests. And that's just not a nice thing to say, it really is. And for you all that are in business, it's a bottom line. And so what we want to do is work very closely with our allies and partners. It really matters. If you take a look at NATO, a few years ago, people said, we don't need NATO. We don't need to be this. It was unimaginable that Russia would, conduct an unprovoked attack on a sovereign nation. And even though, it's in the news, so I'll talk about it, but even though we had the intelligence, we even shared it with some people, they couldn't believe it. We're like, look at this stuff. Here, it's right here. And here, we don't believe you. We're like, well, we just declassified this stuff. It's right here. We're telling you they're going to attack. And they didn't believe it. They believe it now. And they do. And we kind of walked that back. The other thing they believe is that membership has its benefits. So if you listen to the administration and if you listen to the senior leaders, it's we will defend every inch of NATO. We didn't say anyone else, right? So, and those words matter. So if you've seen two countries called Sweden and Finland, they want to be NATO members because they want to get the membership that goes along with that. And that matters, and there's strength in having a lot of allies and partners. We spend a lot of time doing that and building strong relationships. And when things happen, we know all these generals. We've worked with them. Our troops train with them. It's like a team. You have to, another book, Talent Code. If you want to be good at something, you have to do deliberate practice, and you have to have expert coaching, and you got to have primal instinct. You got to be passionate. But that's how you get good at doing operations, and especially combat operations. You have to practice. And the more people, every tank they provide, every soldier they provide, is one less soldier that we have to provide. And that's why that's important.
Oh, that's great. Can you share a little bit more, sir, about future integrated command and control networks and how you think about sharing data with the allies and partners as we get into this more technical phase?
Yeah, I mean that's the again I'm not smart enough to I know what we want, and we're looking to really smart data people to figure this all out. And a lot of it's a discussion of, anyone know about data fabrics or anything like that? No one does good. Oh, you do? I was going to talk about them anyway, so just don't correct me too much. But here's the deal.
He doesn't have a mic.
No, I know. I'm just kidding. But here's what you have is, there's this thing that's going on, and we're seeing this play out in Ukraine. And when you think about applying lethal forces, what you're concerned with is this thing called speed, range, and we call it convergence. So if you think about weapon systems go really fast. We're coming up with hypersonic missiles. They go really fast, okay? They go really far, which is good. But the secret sauce is how do you do that very, very quickly? And so if you're going to do long-range fires, you have to do long-range targeting, and it has to be very, very precise. And you have to be able to move data very, very quickly. And so, the secret sauce, if you will, is convergence, where you have all these different types of sensors. They may be in space, they may be in high altitude, they may be on the ground, and they have the ability to gather information and then move that information, to some type of command and control post. And then whether it's using some type of artificial intelligence to help you make decisions very quickly, it quickly moves that data to the right system at the right time that can deliver those effects that you need. So it's all about data. And, the Ukrainians are doing a lot of this stuff in a very thoughtful way. Some of you have heard them, people talking about HIMARS over there and artillery and stuff like that. But when you can be very, very precise, that starts to make a difference. And that's really going to change, it doesn't change the nature of warfare, but it may change the character of warfare, how we fight in the future. So data, moving data very, very quickly, empowering people with data, and moving around the battlefield is going to be extremely important. And the other thing you're going to see things, a lot of autonomous stuff on the battlefield. And, on the ground, in the air. But at least where I'm at, there'll still be, a person in the loop that controls those type things. But it's all about data, the ability to move data. And, if you're a data scientist, we're going to have a whole bunch of those folks, and we're going to need help doing that.
It does worry me sometimes that we're going to get a little too close to Terminator, where, we've got all these autonomous systems, and we've got AI making decisions, and now there's people in control, but there's a couple of software developers in the room, my partner Sam, one of them, who says code is only as good as the people that code it, right? So
yeah, what I see is people talk about autonomy. I'm more into minimally manned and more minimally reducing the workload. So if you think about it, all this stuff's happening. And those who've shot weapon systems and done targeting, there's a lot of mechanical stuff you had to do. But the future may be you're in an attack some type of attack aircraft, you're in a vehicle, and a sensor finds the system, it lines it all up, it's ready to go, and it's Alexa or Siri, whoever you're talking to, it just go, yeah, go ahead and execute that one. It doesn't execute on itself, but it's ready to go. It's maneuvered the system to where you want to have. And, some of you have seen with IVAS and stuff like that, with heads-up displays where you can bring things into, folks. And I can envision, with a system like IVAS where you're under armor, and when you look left and right, you're looking through the system. But more importantly, you may be maneuvering and have, unmanned aerial systems up in the air and ground vehicles, and even through virtual reality, you can put yourself, you click on the thing, go see what Scout 1's doing. Scout 1 is an unmanned aerial system that's out looking at this, and you actually go into that vehicle, and the way the virtual reality system is such, you think you're actually there. And then it's like, well, let me go see what the ground, robot's doing. I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go over here, and all these type things come together.
Well, and I think you've talked about, I know you and Ryan McCarthy were responsible for giving money to A&M and UT and Carnegie Mellon around all of these, different initiatives. And before you talked about the software factory, the Ukrainian, president and his wife were talking about the key to their success has been Ukrainian coders on the front lines, rapidly developing and adjusting to the different systems. And so I think we're seeing that right now. So the idea that the Army is looking to that is probably really important. So how do you think the Army thinks about conducting rapid prototyping? You've got all these initiatives. I know you're proud of the 24 projects that are launching. How have you thought about prototyping?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to change the way we do business, and like everything else, change. If you're trying to lead change in an organization, it's hard. If you those who've dealt with the acquisition system, we're trying to do a complete change. And the way we used to do things in the past was we would develop what we call requirement documents, and the requirement documents would take 5 to 7 years of detailed study. And we would fill up, books that probably went up to the ceiling, and then we'd put it out to industry. Industry would look at these requirements and spend 5 to 7 years, coming back to us. And 20 years later, you'd be fielding a system. And usually we're pretty smart. Industry did cost-plus contracts, which even looked better. So they were kind of going after it, and we'd pick up a program, and kind of a little exaggeration, but it's like, yeah, we're still trying to get this thing so it's airdroppable at 80,000 feet because it's in the requirement that was written. We could have had this thing done for $2 billion less than 2 years earlier, but you've got this requirement in there. So what we're doing now, and again, it's not perfect, is we're going out to industry and saying, and I've written a couple of these where it's not requirements. Here's kind of what we're thinking about. Here's like 10 characteristics of a vehicle we want, an aircraft we want, and just put it out to a whole bunch of people like you and come back to us just with a white paper. And there might be 100 of you out there, come back, you write a white paper and go, wow, this is pretty cool. We never even thought about this. We got people out there. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you $100,000 each, and we're going to change the characteristics because we kind of are going to shape the characteristics that we had. And now come back with initial design for us. Kind of come back in, you got initial design. Wow, here's a little better. And this thing is turning too. We come back out and give us a detailed design. And we're bringing you down to maybe 3. And now we're going to go, okay, this is really cool, but can you build it? We want to drive it or fly it before we actually get serious about what you're doing. And the other thing we learned, and industry may not like this, is they do a better job when they are spending their own money. They're much more efficient, I've learned, So it just kind of when build us a prototype, and now we get a prototype, and now we can see it. We may be down to 2. In fact, we're doing this with aircraft right now, and we know they can fly them, we know what they can do, and we do a down select, and now we actually go into the requirements and say, okay, these are the actually no kidding requirements. And the requirements are attainable, not unattainable. And we're trying to get that. Now, having said that, there's a lot of people, industry is not real comfortable with that. And quite frankly, our people that are in the acquisition corps who are used to having their pencils all lined up a certain way and having are not as exciting. But this is how you turn things very, very quickly. And this is how we're getting things done. We've got different authorities. And we're hoping, as we demonstrate that this is how we're doing it, we get it done. The other thing we're doing is we do what we call soldiers' touch points. We bring soldiers in along the way. So, like IVAS, you've been out watching IVAS. It's like give it to the soldiers, not the and they have the engineers out there and have the engineers walking through the woods with them. And when and all of a sudden they go, oh, that's why you said that. Oh, this is why you said that. And we're able to, continually update what we're doing. So again, when we deliver the system, we've had the best soldiers, and the other thing, we have the best soldiers on it. We're not putting just anybody that, we're getting our elite soldiers to actually take ownership of it. And that's how we're getting things fast.
I mean, we have seen, I think, anybody in here that's been successful innovating with the Army, I think a lot of that you've made progress in the Special Forces community first, right? Because it's easier, you can call the command sergeant major at Delta and he can tell the guys to put the stuff in and they'll test the equipment. So I think, one of the things is rapid prototyping. The other thing you talked about, sir, is like different authorities for money. Talk a little bit about what you've done with making sure Congress and now giving money for the SBIRs and the OTAs and some of the other buckets.
Yeah, I think that's a good point is, we couldn't do this without Congress, because if you go to OTAs or MTAs and some of the transaction authorities, if you don't have that ability, then the acquisition project, they're just not going to go there, And the point you made, like on our special operations unit, I mean, having spent some time in that business, first of all, you get the best operators, and they can move very, very quickly because they know what they want, and quite frankly, they'll test it. But we're doing a lot of that too right now. We're testing counter UAS. So if anyone's in the counter UAS business, just I can say this because I say it to everyone: get after it. That is a huge threat. That's a growing industry. Those things are all over the place. We're going to have to take down unmanned aerial systems, and we're testing systems all over the world to make that happen. But one of the things about the Army, where we have a lot of folks that have come out of the special operations community that are running, some of our cross-functional teams, or they're running our corps, and so we're getting the best of both. These are innovators. General C.D. Donahue, that's running 18th Airborne Corps right now, and Eric Carrillo, who's running CENTCOM. Some of you know him. I mean, these guys are really good, and they're really innovators, and they are moving things. Someday the history will be told about some of the things you're seeing around the world. We're not going to go into it here, but there's a lot of things that are happening. The difference with the special operations community is the scale. It's one thing to get enough for, like I tell folks, a couple hundred Rangers or a couple hundred other special operators. It's another thing. Everything in the Army for me is multiplied by 1 million, because you got 1 million soldiers. So if you got, trucks, 250,000 trucks, or whatever it is. So whatever we do, it's got to be at a scale. It's the same thing with communications. A lot of folks will go, hey, we put this system in for, 20,000 folks. I'm going, okay, how do we do it for 1 million? And that's why you've got to get a system. And oh, by the way, the programs are so big that there's a lot of interest. Some of these programs are $50 billion programs or $100 billion programs over, so there's going to be a lot of interest, and you've got to be very precise on how you do them, because you'll get protested if you don't.
Yeah, that's, I think, understanding how to navigate the primes and the existing infrastructure for small companies, it can be super overwhelming, which is why they wind up partnering with the primes, and then the primes squeeze them on the money, and so the primes stay in control. In terms of this audience, you have men and women here who are small business leaders. What advice would you have for them doing business with DoD?
Well, first of all, it's hard. Have patience. We're trying to change, but I think if you're going to do business, take a look at where we're trying to go, and look for innovative ideas and take advantage, because a lot of you are going to have solutions to problems, and what you'll find, and a lot of you will get rich when you have a solution, because what we're seeing in some of these competitions is someone's got an idea. They can't scale to the level we want to, but what will happen is one of the big folks will come by and they'll just buy your company up, and some of you probably have done that and been very successful at doing that. But what we're trying to do is, on the small business side, is that's why we're going to these characteristics and some of these type things, with the industry things, is, we'll have our project managers and PEOs come out and say, hey, here's what we're looking for, here's what we need help on, here's some of the things we're talking about, and then come up with an innovative idea, and then, stay consistent and persistent on it. Yet just be patient. We are a bureaucracy, and it's just the way it is, and I don't know how to, we're trying to break down, a lot of steps and those type things, but, it is what it is.
You mentioned earlier you have 2 sons and a daughter and a son-in-law who have all served. How would you describe the difference between their experience and the one that you had through the Army, and how have you seen that and adapted that?
Yeah, I look at my oldest son, and actually I look at all my kids are combat vets, and multiple combat, and my son-in-law is a combat vet, and I look at my oldest son, 82nd Airborne Division, Apache pilot, and a special mission unit, multiple combat tours. What I think about them is their experience is very different than my, first experience in the Army. My first assignment was Fort Ord, California. And I was a single lieutenant, and we flew in the cavalry out there, and we lived in Pebble Beach, and we had a ski house in Tahoe. And while we were there, the Russians never attacked Pebble Beach, I can tell you, you know. And, our experience was going to National Training Center and training, and we were ready to fight. But quite frankly, during that period, we didn't fight. Their experience has been multiple deployments, multiple combat operations. My oldest has got Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and multiple times. He was there at HKIA the last couple of days when, going down. His wedding was 4 September, and he got out of there on a plane coming out of there in 31 August. We weren't sure if he was going to make it or not, but he did. So I mean, when you're the Chief of Staff of the Army and you're watching,
Make sure your son makes it to
the
his
last
own wedding.
plane come out, and you're going,
Okay,
and then you try to make decisions on, do we come out or not come out? I go, well, I hope he makes that wedding. No, it's just, but, but, the same thing. And then, my daughter is, which is really interesting for those, when you're talking to parents, because some people come back, hey, one of the problems with recruiting is, parents don't want their kids to go to combat. And what I will tell them, and this is true, your kids, once they get in the Army, they're going to want to go. And my daughter was exactly, I'm the Chief of Staff of the Army. She's a clinical social worker now in 5th Special Forces Group, but she was supposed to go to Afghanistan, and we were drawing down in Afghanistan. And I made a mistake. The only time I go, hey, I don't think you're going, because, I'm the chief. We're drawing down in Afghanistan, and I got in trouble, went back to my Maria, Dad says I'm not going. And I go, okay, I'm staying out of it. And we had that discussion. I go, if something happens, she's doing what she wants to do, and she wanted to go. And what we find, which is interesting, is a lot of the kids are disappointed that they don't get a chance to go now. And that's something we have to kind of change, because we're still sending people off to combat, but not at the level we did before. And for a lot of these young men and women, they don't want that Velcro patch empty on their right shoulder. And then my youngest son is in the 160th, and he's multiple tours too. So they're all doing their thing, and I'm living vicariously through them. And my son-in-law has got 2 tours with the 101st, and he's in Eastern Europe right now. So I get good. The good thing about having kids to serve, they give you very good, candid feedback. So you need that. So if you're out in business, put your kid down there at the lowest levels, and they will give you unfeathered feedback, which is very helpful.
My 11-year-old has not stopped since she started talking. Sir, who's influenced you the most along the way? And, as a follow-up to that, what are you most proud of in your military career?
Yeah, I've had a lot of non-commissioned officers and really warrant officers that have really influenced me. And I've had senior officers. I got a lot of generals. I can tell you their names, and some of you may know them, and they've been influential. But I think I serve an organization where we had the world's greatest warrant officers and the world's greatest NCOs in the world, and that really showed me the importance of, developing a team that could really do some incredible things. And we did a lot of incredible things. We did a lot of innovation type things. And if you have the right people and in an organization, you can do miraculous things. And so, if you look at my philosophy, it's really 2 things in the Army. It's people first. And, a lot of people, when I first came out with it, they go, what do you mean? I thought it was mission first. What's this people first stuff? That means we go home every day at 3:30 in the afternoon? Or what does that really mean? And what it really means is you get the people right, and in the right jobs where you're really, taking and, letting them perform they want to perform, and you take care of them, you will have an incredible organization. And the other thing for me is winning matters. And as I tell our soldiers, I tell the cadets when I go up there, and even in the football game, I go, hey, when we send, the Army somewhere, when we send Army football somewhere, we're not going to participate. We're not going to try hard. We're going to go and win, because there's no second place or honorable mention in combat, and we need to beat Navy too. So
We're only gonna
all right.
we're only gonna do dive left 37 times in the first half.
Yeah.
When you think about, one of the things we've talked about with this group is, as you get out of the military, you have to develop your own narrative, and a lot of your narrative is based on your experience. How do you think being an aviator and thinking about risk maybe differently than an infantryman? What are the things about being an aviator that you've drawn on in your career that you think have been competitive advantages?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an aviator, but I don't really think of myself as an aviator. I think I've flown helicopters, but I also
can fly a lot of them.
I can fly a lot of them, but to me, it's more of an attitude. I grew up in the Air Cavalry, and I was an infantry officer when I started, and I've been in special operations units. I've commanded a cavalry brigade that has tanks. I've, commanded the 101st. But to me, it's all about range. And, if you ever want to read a book, I'll give you my reading, the range, what I've learned is you get, innovative solutions by doing different things. And so even, a lot of times I had a brigade that had tanks in it, and I went out and shot, gunnery with these, with the armor guys. And like, well, hey, sir, how can you do that? To me, it's all the same. The difference is if you've ever been in a Abrams tank, they kind of drive about 70 miles an hour, about 6 inches off the ground. I'm amazed how fast they go. But, you've flown Apache, at this high, and, the tank's moving that fast, and gunnery is gunnery. But what you start to do is you start to look at solutions that may be different. I asked any armor folks here, former armorers, okay, I asked the question, why are there 4 people in the tank? Why are there 4 people in the tank? That's you. You're on. Okay, why does it have to be 4 people in the tank? Because I got that. I asked that question, and people, what's that?
They have extra function. They pull security. They can back up somebody. If somebody's wounded, you got an extra person.
Okay.
We have 4 people in the Russian gun 3 and things.
Yeah.
If you do more, they have more machine guns.
Okay, you're making the argument, okay? Yeah. Okay, so you need
Austin,
you need a
get that guy
driver.
coined.
Yeah, you need a driver, you need a gunner, you need a TC, and you need a loader, right? Those are the 4?
But you can make a loader. You can make an automatic loader.
Okay. And what would happen if you made an automatic loader?
Well, if you use your arm in it, it malfunctions.
But here's the deal. I mean, we're going to have we got a robotic tank right now that has no one in it. And it's, it can do all the, but the point is, I asked the question, because I said the same thing. I go, I fly like a tank. It's kind of called an Apache helicopter. And we have 2 people in it. And quite frankly, if we had the capabilities we have right now with, autopilots and terrain following, all these type things, we probably could have 1. And then even then, we wouldn't necessarily need 1 because, quite frankly, the aircraft, we can have it fly itself and do all these type things. But like for me, even like a Chinook, we could have that thing, we're going to have a Black Hawk fly autonomous out this program we're working. But I have a hard time looking at it like a Chinook and having 35 Rangers in the back and they go up, knock on the door, and there's no one up there, So you gotta have someone up there. But imagine where the person that's up there is more like a mission commander. Just when you ask him, he tells Alexei or whoever this person is, take us over here, fly that, shoot that weapon system. But the real thing is on the aviation side, you're reducing weight. And if you look at an Abrams, every person you put on there is additional weight.
Especially tankers are a little.
No, not that. No, the protection, and
4 tankers equals an entire infantry squad.
But the point is, and this is where I love talking to my army. Like people just get really up. They're here like, hey, sir, you just don't. Let me explain you why. And what I'm looking for is innovation. I'm looking to do it. Well, how, well, sir, who's going to change the track? We need 4 guys to do that. Well, how about we have a robotic vehicle comes up and it does it by itself? I mean, there's a lot of ways, but you'll never get away from the 80-ton Abrams or whatever we're at right now. Because when you look at protection, if you put 4 people, and I've done engineering design and stuff like that, and you got to build a 95% type people, and you got to put them in the seats, and you build a thing around them, and then you got to build so. Before you know it, you can't do anything different. The Abrams tank will always look like the Abrams tank. The aircraft will always look the same as the aircraft if you do it the same way. And what you're looking for is people that may have range that will look at something different and get after. One of the examples that I use is is the phone. I don't know if you ever heard my little phone thing. In my house, I have I live in quarters 1, which is the chief of staff of the Army's house. and there's a Eisenhower bedroom, and it's been the same way, and there's a picture of Eisenhower right over the mantle.
Kind of creepy.
It's kind of creepy in a way, because when you go in that room, if you ever come out of my house, I got to show it, because his eyes, wherever you're in the room, his eyes are looking at you. And then you go over here, and it's true. And so if you ever come to my house, I'll give you the tour.
I can't wait to go to your house and go to the creepy bedroom.
Yeah, but the other thing is, there's a phone there, and for the younger people, this phone is like a dial phone. It's the phone that he used during World War II. That's what he ran the war with. And, I try to use this analogy because I'm trying to talk about how we're trying to transform the Army. So if you look at that phone, which is a dial phone, the phone company came in and they incrementally improved it over the years, right? Because it started out in the wall, and then people wanted to be able to walk around, so they put a longer cord on it. Then the cord was knocking over lamps, so they said, I want a cordless phone. Then people want to go outside, and so you got a cell phone, so you're getting in, and so you're going down this road. But then some people from the computer guys came in and say, we're going to get this new thing called a smartphone. And when I try to coach our folks, imagine, a lieutenant coming into me 20 years ago and go, hey, sir, I got this great idea. We're going to take pictures with our phones. And I'd be looking at, that's why you're a lieutenant. I got this phone. How do you take a damn picture with it? Oh, we're going to navigate with these phones. We got these things called maps. We don't navigate. We're going to watch TV on our phones. We're going to do all these things. I don't even know what half the stuff my phone can do, but we're going to do it with it. That's what we're doing in the Army right now with this system called IVAS. And that's what we're trying to do, because what we're doing is we've taken these things called night vision goggles, and some of you have been around. We started flying with these night vision goggles and PVS 5s, and we put like big weights on our heads, and we incrementally improved them. We went to, we cut them out, and we scared ourselves, and we went to PVS 6s, and now we got these quad, but each time we've incrementally improved those goggles for night. Now they're fused, so you get flare and ambient, and they're really good. In fact, we got this enhanced night vision goggle Bravo that the troops love. But now what we're trying to do is we got the Microsoft folks bring this thing called an IVAS. And it's going to not only do that, it's going to do a whole bunch of things, and it's going to give you, we're going to be able to eventually train on it, rehearse on it, and do all these different types of things. Right now, it's a little clunky, it's a little bigger, but if you look at the old cell phones and some of them, they were big and clunky. But I predict in 5 years, young men and women will be using these things in ways we never thought of. Be a heads-up display, there'll be things going on, and and people will be augmented, and it'll be smaller, better, and everything else. And we'll fundamentally do things differently if people let us. Because some folks, and we're all guilty of it, we don't have the range to see, what's in the realm of the possible, because we are a product of our experience. And I know that was a long answer, but what happens is if you don't get range, and that's why it's, and you just have people that are focused on one, kind of industry or one thing, you will solve problems in a very constrained way, and you'll never get, you guys are all innovators. That's how you get innovation, is you've seen a whole bunch of different things, and you can take things and use them in ways we never see them. That's why in the Army what we're trying to do is give innovators problems rather than going, hey, I need you to build this system that's airdroppable, has this. We put so many constraints on you can't get to innovation.
Sir, we want to be respectful of your time. Last comment for the group? Anything?
Close it? No, I just, first of all, thank you for each and every one of your service and how you've served the nation. I will ask you for some help. All of you, I think most of you have been West Point graduates or had a chance to serve in the military, and you are all soldiers for life. And what I ask soldiers for life to do is I give them 2 things to do, okay? I don't give you 3 because you're either retired or you're out of the Army, you're veterans, but I'd like you to do 2 things for the Army. One is inspire, and the other is hire. Inspire other young men and women to serve in the Army or serve in the military or serve somewhere, so when they grow up, they'll have a great experience. And the second thing is hire our vets. So when folks come out, and when I'm telling folks whether you serve 3 years, 5 years, 42 years, when, oh my God. But anyways, when people come out, help them transition, and that's what I'm telling leaders too. I mean, the fact that people serve 5, whatever, you know, they served their country. They raised their right hand. They said, you know, I want to serve, and we should respect that. And the other thing is, you know, for young men and women, and this is hard to explain, when they get older, I get a chance to talk to a lot of CEOs and other folks, and almost to a person, they tell me, there's one thing I wish I did, you know, when I was younger, is I wish I served. And, you know, and we want to give everyone the opportunity to do that. It won't be easy necessarily, but it will make a difference. And when they're older and, you know, kind of, you know, in the twilight of their lives, they'll be looking back on what was important, and their service will be extremely important. So thank you for all you do. It's great to spend some time with you, okay?
Thanks, sir. Thanks. We got a little gift for you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.